Hi guys, my name is Ashley with Old Soul Creative. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite mediums to use on furniture, and that is alcohol ink. Alcohol ink is super trendy right now. Just like resin art has taken off, acrylic pouring art has taken off, so has alcohol ink. I think it has to do with the fact that they're all just super versatile mediums. Anybody can sort of just dive right in and be successful very early on, which makes the medium super easy and fun, right? Like, who wants to dive in and then fail a million times? Like, there's really no right or wrong way to use these tools. They're just another really cool thing to add to your toolkit in terms of different things that you can apply to your furniture, right? So the first thing we do need to remember though when we're working with alcohol ink is that it's actually intended to be used on non-porous surfaces. So that's why you see so many super cute like tile coaster sets being made with alcohol ink, or really cute mugs, anything ceramic really, in the crafting world, or in the fine art world, you'll see more alcohol inks happening on Yupo paper. Sorry, I don't know if I actually pronounced that correctly. Yupo paper. But anyway, it's actually made out of polypropylene, so it's a plastic material, and that's what gives it its slickness that alcohol ink sort of thrives in. Because when you place alcohol ink directly on a slick surface, it doesn't soak in, right? There's nothing to soak into. So that gives it a lot of room and time to move around, and the artist to achieve those really beautiful, ethereal, flowing sort of color situations that happen when we see alcohol art. Now, when we're working with alcohol ink on furniture, clearly we do not have a non-porous surface. Most of us are going to be working with chalk paint, clay-based paints, anything super porous, because you literally want something in your paint that's going to grip to whatever you're painting, right? The furniture piece. That's why so many furniture artists gravitate toward all of our chalk paint lines and, you know, all of the other paint additives and mixatives and things like that, because it, you know, it gives us great distressing, it cuts down on prep time, all of the awesome myriad reasons that we all use chalk paint. For this application though, our chalk paint is going to make things a little bit different. So that's just something to keep in mind if you've seen alcohol ink tutorials done by other artists, or if you've tried alcohol inks in the past. It's just going to be a little bit different when you do it on your furniture piece. So that's just something to keep in mind. That being said, let's just dive right in and we'll go over what you're going to need for this project today if you want to try out using some alcohol inks. So first things first, clearly we're going to need some ink. I've picked out a color family here. I'm going for kind of like a cool tones, purple, blue, green, and then I have a gold mixative. These are Pinata inks by Jacquard. I just picked up one of their starter sets, their mixed sets, so it came with like 12 different colors for me to try. Who else makes some? I think Ranger makes a bunch, and those are more readily available, I think, at like your local craft store. Joann's, Michael's, sometimes Walmart carries them too. There's a big, what's that guy's name? Tim Holtz, or whatever his name is. Anyway, he makes a ton of alcohol inks, so if you want to just go out and buy their little pack of 3 just to give it a try, that's a great place to start. You're not out a ton of money. Also, the Ranger inks tend to be a little less pigmented. These are like ridiculously pigmented. This kind of situation, like highlighter colors, really deep, beautiful, rich jewel tones. But if you want to achieve something that's a little more wispy and a little less intense, then just keep that in mind, that you'll want to mix your inks with a little bit of alcohol before you get started, so that it's not like, well, bam in your face kind of thing. So anyway, there are my inks. The next most important thing that you're going to need is isopropyl alcohol. You can get this anywhere, Walmart, CVS, 99-cent store, stock up on it, because oh my gosh, it's like water. You're gonna need so much of it, it's awesome. And I like to put mine into a little spray bottle for easy access. And then also when you spray it, it gives you some cool mottled textures. So that's a good thing to have, a little spray bottle with isopropyl alcohol in it. And then I also like to get a bunch of these little dropper things. I just got these on Amazon. It came with like a pack of 200 or something. And these are great for the ink as well, for dropping the ink on instead of using, you know, if you didn't want to use your dropper, if you made a custom color or something in a separate cup, then you can very easily just use your little squeegee to put the ink onto your surface. So those are my two ways that I'm going to get the alcohol and the ink onto the surface. And then last but not least, oh wait, there's two more things left, sorry. You're gonna need some, this is plastic wrap. So, and this is what I'm gonna use to create like a textured finish on the wood. You don't have to have this. If you don't use it, you're gonna get something that looks a little bit more like this, a little bit more fluid looking. This is gonna give us some cool like hard line texture situations. So this is just another tool to have. Now lastly, I have a heat gun. This comes in super handy for alcohol inks and resin. If you think you're gonna start branching out into other mediums, this is just a really cool thing to have on hand. It's like $20 on Amazon, no big deal. If you don't have one, don't worry, go get your hair dryer, your blower on the lowest setting and it'll work just fine. So no worries there. The other thing I want to mention too about alcohol art is that it's super fluid. You do not have a ton of control with this medium. You kind of, I think I'm mentioning this because I am a control freak to the max. So this is a great medium for me to sort of emotionally practice letting go and letting things just sort of happen organically the way that they want to and be okay with that. So just have that in mind, that you're not going to have a ton of control. Have, you know, like a loose picture in your mind of what you want to achieve, but certainly don't get stressed out if it doesn't turn out exactly how you want it to. So let's dive right in. I'm going to switch you. I'm going to put you on the ceiling so you can look down on this and we'll get to work. Okay, so I've prepped the surface. I decided to go with just chalk paint on this one. I figured most people are going to use chalk paint, and the latex honestly wasn't that much better in terms of how it performed with the alcohol ink to justify all the trouble that you have to go through to use latex paint. So anyway, we're going with chalk paint. This is just 2 coats of any white, any Sloan. The pigments do work best with a white paint. So just prep whatever space you want the ink on with any white chalk paint. This is the look we're going for. We're gonna try and replicate it over here. So let's get started. Same materials list as before. I've got my heat gun, my open cup of isopropyl alcohol, 91% or more, my little squeegee picker-upper thingy. Oh, pipette. It's a pipette, guys. Wow, thanks to the hubs, he's here. I've got my little spray bottle from the 99-cent store with isopropyl alcohol in it as well. And then for this look, I've got 4 pigments here. There's, I think this is called Rainforest Green from Pinata. I have Baja Blue from Pinata and Mantilla Black from Pinata. Again, they're all super, super pigmented, so you're gonna end up with a really rich jewel tone bluey green like you see here. And then I have my Pinata Rich Gold Mixative. And again, you just wanna make sure to really, really shake that up because all of those metallic pigments end up settling at the bottom of the bottle. So let's just get started. I'm gonna take my open cup of isopropyl and flood one of the corners. You want to make sure that the alcohol doesn't reach the actual edge of the drawer just yet, because then the dyes will start to fall off as soon as you move the mixative around. So now I'm going to go in with just a few drops of my color. I'm going green heavy on this color story. I'm mixing in a little black to tone down those colors a bit, and a little bit of blue on occasion to make like a tealy color. And now I've got my gold. I'll drop in a few droppers of gold. And we're just gonna go in with our heat gun now. And remember, I'm gonna hit it from the top first to mix those inks around into the alcohol. And then I'll move to the edges in order to try and control it a little bit. So you see one top heavy hit to mix the colors. And now is where you start using your design sense a little bit. Start controlling where the ink goes, hitting it from the edges until you see it slow down, and watch it settle. Boom. Just like that. You're gonna laugh at how easy this is. Like, really, I'm doing a tutorial on this. It's amazing how this will just open up your world. So here we are again with our pipette. Thanks, Drew. We're gonna flood this second corner. Add my ink. Go in with a tiny bit of black to tone it down. Couple spots of blue. And then mix up with the gold. Here's my heat gun again. Again, I'm gonna hit it from the top. Blast those colors straight into the isopropyl alcohol. Make sure I get a really nice flood of color everywhere. And then start to come in and control the flood. You can see how the gold creates these really pretty veins as the ink settles and dries. And as the pigment mixes with the alcohol in these little areas, it thins out. So that's how you get those really pretty ethereal moments where there are thinner, lighter spots of color and then really, really pigmented areas, and you get these really beautiful lines happening. So here we go again. I'm gonna flood this corner now. I'm using about 2 pipettes of alcohol, a couple of drops of green, a little bit of blue, a bit of black. Whoops. I'll drop some straight on the wood there. So I'm gonna use my finger to break up that blue since it dropped directly onto my chalk paint. And like we covered before, that chalk paint is a porous surface, so it won't want to move around without the alcohol. Okay, so here's a good example how the alcohol didn't spread past this point. And this is what happens differently from if you're working on a non-porous material. If you were working on a ceramic of some type, there's nothing to hold back the alcohol, so it will flood everywhere. There's nothing to hold it back. But here, when we're working on a porous surface like chalk paint, the alcohol will only go so far and then it will stop. So if you end up with these little white portions of the paint, if you want them to be flooded with color, just go back and re-flood them again with your alcohol. Add a couple little drops of ink again. And blast them with your heat gun. Super, super easy to fix little moments like that happen. Even now it's not flooding into this corner, so I'm gonna hit it with my spray gun. Use my finger to break up those edges a little bit and rework it. That's the cool thing about this medium that you will love. It is so versatile. It's really easy to rework spots that you don't like. If you don't like how they turned out, just hit them again. Keep working them. So I'm flooding this corner again with my straight isopropyl. Get a couple dots of green in there, some black again, a little bit of blue. Coming in with my gold now. The gold is so fun. I think I love the veins that happen when you're able to move it around. Hit it from the top really quickly to blast those colors together. And then I'm gonna start moving them around, pushing them where I want them to go. Super pretty. It's almost like an emerald situation that's happening. I was kind of going for like ferns, but. So the other way to fix these little white spots too is to flood them with isopropyl. I just did with the pipette, and I'm just going in with my finger now. And I'm doing really small, soft circles to break up the edges of the ink that was already there and push them over those white spots. That way you don't even have to add more ink. So now I'm gonna come into my heat gun again and re-establish new shapes where the ink didn't flood. Boom. Check it out. All right, let's move on to our next one. We'll go through the whole thing again. Okay, so I've got my prepped surface again, and I also used a really, really super low, this is 600 grit gator paper just wrapped around a t-shirt, and I just gave it a really quick sanding just to make it as smooth as possible. There are still grooves in the paint, but if you were to feel this, it feels like a baby's butt. So that's just gonna provide one more step to let that isopropyl alcohol really spread out and flood across your piece nicely and not get caught on any ridges that you might have from painting. And that again is something specific to using alcohol inks on furniture rather than on a non-porous surface. So let's dive right in. I've got my isopropyl again and my pipette. Do a couple here in the corner. Go in with our ink. And you can use obviously any color that you want, achieve any color story. Oh my gosh, the opportunities are endless to what you can achieve, the look you're going for. Now I'm gonna hit it from the top, remember, a couple times, get those colors to mix, and then start moving the ink all across the piece. Now how you get, the way that you get those really cool lines is to move the ink back across itself. You see how I'm going back and forth here to kind of trap it? If I were, I'll show you again. Flood this area again. Do a little more blue this time. It is pretty though, it's turning into like Emerald City over here. Then I've got my gold again. Okay, so I'll hit it from the top, mixing those colors up so we don't have any, you know, I'm going for a subtle look, so the more they mix, the better for me. So now I could continue from the top and just let it spread out, but I'm gonna come in from my edges and push the ink back in toward itself. And that is how you create these cool lines that happen. Does that make sense? So if I were to just continue on from the top and push the ink out in one direction, like that, it would be really pretty and look like watercolors, but I would miss out on all these really cool overlapping sort of lines that happen. So it's just something to think about as you're, you know, creating your composition. And we go from the top and then mix them, push them in toward each other, and then push them out. Now I'm going to come back in, start pushing them toward each other again. Get those overlapping pretty shapes that happen. Whoops, sorry guys. This one over here. There we go. All right, so that's all dry. Okay, now we'll go back in and flood this corner. A bit of black. I'm gonna use my finger again. See how I dropped that little drop of blue straight onto the chalk paint, and now it's not mixing, right? So I'm gonna use my finger to break that up. Make sure it spreads really nicely. Come in with some green and my gold. Here we come again with the heat gun, pushing it around. Make sure that gold gets mixed in there. Now I start coming in, start making some decisions which way I want it to go. Use the direct air to push the ink. Now I feel like I probably have enough pigment on it as it is, so I am gonna go back through and flood these little white sections just with alcohol and use my finger again, small circular motions to reactivate the ink. Push it around. And then I'll hit it with the heat gun again. Set it up. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And then, let's see, come in here. I think that's a pretty big spot. I think I'll go ahead and hit these with a little bit of ink rather than reactivating. Push around the green, make sure it makes it all the way across. So you see how if the ink ends up in a place that I like the shape that's happening, you just move the gun back and forth on either side to trap the ink where you like it. And that way it'll stay there. See, I'm going back and forth to trap it there. I ended up with quite a few little spots on this one, didn't I? To fill. Flood that corner. There's a lot of ink right there, that's great. A lot of ink to work with in that little spot right there. Push, 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 push with the air. And there are so many different effects that you can achieve just by messing around with it. I encourage you to just play. I can't even tell you how long it took me to settle on this particular method. Oh my gosh, you guys, I've been testing for weeks. I really wanted to use alcohol in furniture, and let me tell you, it was not easy to figure out the best way to achieve this look or use this medium in a way that it was not intended to be used. So that's the thing, is you just have to try until you get something that's working for you. So you see there, I also used the squirt gun to reactivate the ink. So again, it's just experimenting, finding which method you're most comfortable with and which method achieves the look that you want to achieve. Fill in this little corner. Right, I feel like that's pretty good. Moving on to our last one. Look how quick this is, seriously. like 1 layer of chalk paint and take care of your inks, and then you move on, you know? I mean, it's a really quick and easy medium to work with once you get the hang of it. 'Cause let me tell you, I went through some projects to figure this out. My husband's probably laughing at me. That is true. Okay, so let's go back in again. Same as before, just keep flooding. Keep adding some ink. I feel like I'm going really green heavy. That's fine though. I don't add in a ton of black. The black is just to kind of tone it down so that it doesn't end up feeling like a hokey color scheme. But be careful with it because the black is just as pigmented as all of the other piñata colors if you are using piñata inks, and it will overwhelm very, very quickly. So see how I have a nice river of gold there? I'm gonna go back and forth to tap it. If I hit it from the top right now, it would spread out and be gone. So see how I'm just using the air to trap the ink where it is, where it's ended up, because I like it there. The one thing I don't like though are those two like globs of gold. So see, you just keep going back in and reworking. It's such an easy medium to change. You cannot mess it up. You cannot do it wrong. Back and forth with the air until it settles in a place that you like. There's one more spot of gold where I dropped the dropper of gold and it just like, it's settled there. And again, that's something that will happen with the chalk paint because we are using a porous surface. So the alcohol ink naturally wants to soak into the chalk paint like a sponge. So that's why the isopropyl alcohol is so, so important to give it somewhere to move to. Otherwise it would just sit there wherever you dropped it. So that broke that up a little bit. Moving right along. And you can work in small areas, or larger areas. I like working in these pretty small areas because I can control what's happening a little bit better. And like I said, I'm kind of a control freak. So it gives me the illusion that I have some choice over what happens. But you could flood this entire thing, drop the entire thing with your ink, and move it around and be done in 5 seconds. And again, that's just something that you will have to experiment with as you work with the medium and figure out the looks that you like and what achieves. What happens when you do different things. Man, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I must be dropping that gold from too high because it is sinking straight through the isopropyl alcohol and soaking up into the chalk paint. And I don't like those like blobby spots of gold. So I'm just going in with my finger, remixing, reactivating the gold, and then I'll redisperse it with my heat gun. That's a little better. Keep flooding. Ink. And gold. Maybe I'll go over the color. Gold, maybe that'll help. A little bit different. Coming back toward the edges, so I do an initial burst from the middle to spread the ink, and then I start reining it back in from the edges and pushing it, manipulating it to settle where I want it to go. just gonna do a couple drops right here. It's a pretty small little section that didn't get anything. So as I'm blowing, I'm noticing it's settling too quickly. So I'm just using the spray gun to reactivate even as I do it. Last corner, guys. Holy schmoly. Can you believe it? Remember to be really careful when you get to the edge. It will drip right off, and that's your money. So try and rein it in as much as you can away from the edges. And then, like I said, when you end up with these little areas, we know how to fix those. Just flood them, reactivate the ink with your finger, and it'll be just fine. And that way you won't lose as much product. Because man, they come in tiny bottles. That's the other thing you have to think about. Most alcohol artists are working on pieces that are super small, right? Well, relative to creating furniture. So your products aren't gonna last as long as they would for your typical artist. So let me finish this here, and then I'll show you a couple of little tricks to add some dimension and continue working with the medium to achieve some different looks. All right. So I've got my straight up alcohol in my spray bottle. You can spray over your pieces and you'll see what happens as the isopropyl alcohol reactivates the ink. It gives it kind of a really cool mottled effect. So that's one way that you can add some dimension. And the other way is to straight up drop, oh gosh, so here's something that happens too. These pipettes are super cheap, right? So they split after a while of squeezing. So this one's not gonna work anymore, so I need a new one. I'm gonna block it with my finger just for the sake of this though. You can drop little droppers of ink and you can see it reactivating the pigment, and it will dry this way as it evaporates and create another really cool effect. So I encourage you to just create a really blocked out canvas like this of color and go in and start experimenting with different effects to create a composition through the alcohol ink. It's freaking awesome, guys, and so versatile. I mean, I can't even tell you how many different ways you're going to be able to use this in your artwork as well as your furniture. And you don't have to do big, huge areas like this. You could just do a small area as like a little accent. So, sorry, just going back through, and you can start breaking up like all these splotchy little gold moments. I'm probably gonna revisit and just continue to break them up. And the other thing I think I'll do is create sort of a composition by using those splotches across the piece to give it a direction and a flow. So I'm just breaking up those gold pieces, those little splotchy gold moments. So you see, if I hold the heat directly above it and spray down, it'll create like a splatter effect. So like I said, you just have to experiment, see what happens. Can do no wrong as long as you're open to the organic look And the fact that you don't have a ton of control over what happens, what ends up happening, you'll be fine. And it's a really fun, a fun medium to work with and figure out. So that is it for me, folks. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I hope that you go buy yourself some alcohol inks and give this a try. You start experimenting, having fun, and bringing a new look to your furniture.
Hi guys, I'm back to talk about sealing your alcohol ink project. I kept waiting and waiting for my voice to come back. I'm really sick. My family's been sick for a long time, but alas, I need to finish this, so we're just gonna dive in and deal with this. I'm really sorry. If you have any questions, you're unable to understand what I'm actually speaking, just shoot me a message. I'll be really happy to answer your questions. So let's dive right in. Last time we finished laying down our alcohol ink, and then I started experimenting with layering paint on top of the alcohol ink. And I haven't had a whole lot of luck layering like large areas of paint over the alcohol ink because there's so much bleed through. But smaller areas like this, smaller lines are okay, I think. But that's just something that I'm gonna have to figure out in the experimenting process. But that being said, you can totally skip this part. I've just painted a fern here. Just skip that part. And if you like the alcohol ink effect, just seal that and be good to go. So that being said, I've tried several different sealant methods. The first of which would totally just go right in line with however you're going to seal the rest of your piece, having painted it with chalk paint, would just be wax. I used this Minwax finishing paste. It worked fine. I just buffed it in really lightly. I didn't like use a ton of pressure. I didn't know how the ink was going to interact like chemically with the alcohol ink, if it was going to lift it or reactivate it or anything, and none of that happened. I just buffed the wax out like I did, like I would have on the rest of the piece, and it worked fine. That being said, there was still, when I painted over it, there was a ton of bleed through. So if you don't like what you've done with your alcohol ink and you want to paint over it to start over, you have to sand it completely away. Otherwise you'll get a ton of bleed through and you'll never get rid of those colors. And then the second method I tried was this Rust-Oleum acrylic enamel. And this worked really, really well. This, I was, just experimenting with different products because what I wanted to do, part of this experiment I didn't like, and I wanted to see how far I could push the boundaries of the paint and alcohol, so that to see if I could paint over it again, right? Because that's part of the beauty of chalk paint is if you paint a panel and you don't like it, well, paint over it and it adds to the dimension, right? You can distress and show those layers of paint through. So that's part of the cool thing about working with a medium like chalk paint. But this is not one of those mediums. You kind of have to love it and live with it, or you have to sand it off and start again. So I encourage you to experiment on some panels before you move to a large piece of furniture, or work on a small section like a drawer front or something first to make sure that you're gonna dig the outcome. Otherwise, obviously, like I said, you're gonna have to sand it all out. But yeah, so these are two really good options, this spray enamel or this, or just wax finishing paste. And then I also tried a polyacrylic spray. I know this is all backwards for you, but I always just look at the can when I'm in Home Depot. I'm like, I recognize that. Joni said something about that. I'm gonna buy it. But this actually reactivated the alcohol ink, which is totally fine. Once it dried, it was sealed and it was fine. But I had the piece lifted up like this and I sprayed it with the poly. It reactivated the ink. So it was like I poured alcohol all over them, because I bet that's a huge ingredient in this. Duh. And, so my alcohol ink just started to drip down the piece, which ended up being really cool, but maybe you don't want that to happen. So for the sake of being careful, maybe just flip the piece. Make sure, always working with alcohol ink on furniture, ensure that the surface you're working on is parallel to the ground, so that if you do spray it with something and it does reactivate, it will just re-dry in the original configuration that you had artistically placed there, and it won't move the ink into a new form or drip all over your piece. So those are just things to think about. And then, so I'm not finished with this piece yet. I wanted to have it finished for you to show you the possibilities of alcohol ink, but then pneumonia happened to my whole family this whole month, so I haven't got quite as far as I had intended for the purpose of this video. But I think there's enough here for you to understand that this is a really cool medium. It's totally worth the investment of buying yourself some alcohol inks, even on a fine art level. If you're not going to use them on furniture, just experiment. You know, it's one of those awesome mediums like acrylic pouring and resin art. All of these art forms are really taking off because they're empowering for regular people just trying to be creative and expressive, right? They're an approachable art form. It's not like you're picking up a paintbrush and some oil paint and trying to paint a chapel or something, right? So I'm gonna not move this anymore because I'm really weak. I'm gonna move the camera and show you the other side here, because this is another experiment with alcohol ink. This is where I started, and I am gonna redo this to match the other side, but I just want you to see the cool different effects that you can achieve. This is just me experimenting, you know, kind of feeling out how the alcohol inks are going to interact with the chalk paint, and what kind of freedoms I would have. So I really, really encourage you to just get an old panel in your garage, you know, some plywood or something, slap a few coats of your white chalk paint on it, buff it out with a high grit sandpaper so it's nice and smooth, and then just go to town, you know, without commitment, without expectation, and just feel out this really cool art form and try to envision the different ways that you can use it for your expression and your furniture. And there's one more. I'll take you over here and just show you. I have all these experimental boards going on. I learned a lot, guys. Here's another one. This is, gosh, it's dark over here on the side of the garage. This one, I was using some plastic wrap on top of the alcohol ink, and then you can see again that I am attempting to paint on top of the alcohol ink. So there's really no limit to the different ways that you can use this medium and explore its limitations. So dive in, get out there, have some fun, and tag me when you make something. I want to see what happens, and I want to see all the successes and all the failures, because that's what I do, right? Is just get out there. Don't be embarrassed with the things that happen along the way. That's part of the journey, the ugly pieces, right? So anyway, thanks for watching, and good luck, guys. Have fun.